My name is Victoria Sterling, and for years I thought I was living a dream come true. I was 36, a successful novelist residing in a historic brick townhouse in Boston with my husband James, an investment advisor whose words could dissolve my worries instantly. He had this way of speaking my name, gentle and deliberate like a vow. Each morning began with a kiss on my cheek and tea prepared exactly how I preferred it. Each night ended with him murmuring that I was his everything. I believed every word until one evening my world crumbled. It was nearly 1 a.m. I awakened to find the bed empty beside me. Initially, I figured James had gone downstairs for a midnight snack or to check something. I turned over, expecting to fall back asleep. Then I heard it. A voice, his voice. It drifted from his study, quiet, intense, calculated. "She hasn't figured anything out yet," he said. I went completely still. I couldn't draw breath. The air felt suffocating, and my pulse started racing like thunder in my ears. I sat up, straining to listen. "Everything is proceeding according to plan. Nearly finished," he continued. I slipped quietly to the hallway, flattening myself against the wall. Near his study door, a narrow beam of light seeped through the gap. I could barely make out the rest, but I didn't need to. I had heard enough. I crept back to bed, lying motionless, feigning sleep. When James returned moments later, he slid under the covers with the same practiced composure, adjusting the blanket over us as if he hadn't just destroyed my reality. That night I didn't sleep. I stared into the darkness, my thoughts spinning. I didn't know what he was scheming, but I knew one thing with certainty. My husband was concealing something massive, and it concerned me. The following morning I drifted through the kitchen like a spectre. James was still sleeping, his breathing deep and regular. I stood before the espresso machine, my hands shaking as I grabbed my phone. Until that moment I had never once examined our financial accounts. James always managed everything. Bills, savings, portfolios. I trusted him completely. I thought that's what a devoted wife should do. But trust, I was discovering, could be the first step toward losing everything. I opened the banking application. My breath hitched. Transaction after transaction appeared on the screen. $750 here, $2,200 there, $850, thousands of withdrawals over the past 4 months. Nothing massive individually, but collectively they told a story, a very disturbing one. I gripped the counter edge, trying to stabilise myself. Then came the voice behind me. "Reviewing accounts this early?" James's tone was relaxed, but I noticed the flash of alarm in his eyes as he leaned against the doorframe, scratching his chin. "Just being thorough," I said, attempting to sound casual. "Some of these transactions seem strange." He approached, poured himself espresso, and flashed me a rehearsed smile. "Oh, those. Just some minor business ventures. I must have forgotten to mention them." He sipped without looking at me. Something inside me crystallized. It wasn't rage, not yet. It was something icier, something sharper. I nodded slowly, pretending to buy his story. But I was studying him now. Not with affection, not with trust, but with awareness. Every casual gesture, every evasion was another fissure in the facade I had once believed in. That evening I observed more. He was glued to his phone constantly, always placing its screen down, always stepping away for calls. When I inquired about his projects, he would grin and say, "Just work stuff, nothing you need to stress about." But I was stressed, profoundly so, and that stress was transforming into determination. I wasn't going to sit around wondering what he was plotting. I needed answers, and I needed them immediately. 3 days later, opportunity knocked. It was a peaceful evening. James had just finished dinner and announced he was going to shower. Typically, he carried his phone everywhere, like it was part of him. But tonight, for the first time, he left it on the coffee table. I stared at it. My heart hammered in my chest like an alarm. I waited 30 seconds, then 60. I heard water running upstairs, and I reached for it. His phone was unlocked. My fingers trembled as I browsed through recent messages. Most were innocuous. work reminders, casual conversations. But then one thread caught my attention. No contact name, just digits. The latest message read, "Forward her the Meridian documents. Just ensure she remains clueless. Almost there." I froze. I read the message repeatedly, my mind reeling. Meridian documents and ensure she remains clueless. Who was her? Was it me? Was he sending someone information about me? My stomach churned. I placed the phone back precisely where he'd left it, careful not to disturb anything. Then I walked to the bathroom, splashed cold water on my face, and tried to steady my breathing. The shower was still running. I had a few more minutes, but I couldn't stop thinking. James wasn't just lying, he wasn't just cheating. He was orchestrating something significant, and I was the target. Later that night, when he climbed into bed, he kissed my forehead as usual. "Everything all right?" he asked, his voice tender. I nodded and smiled weakly. "Just exhausted." Inside, I was screaming. He didn't know I had seen the message. He still believed I was in the dark. That was his error, and I intended to exploit it. The next morning, as soon as James left for work, I called Sophie. Sophie Chen wasn't just my closest friend from law school. She was also a brilliant corporate attorney. We had drifted apart for several years, but reconnected last fall over lunch. I never imagined I'd be calling her like this. When she answered, I didn't waste time. My voice trembled as I explained everything. James's secretive calls, the hidden transactions, the message about Meridian documents. She listened silently. When I finished, she asked just one question. "How much money are we discussing?" "Close to 600,000, I said. There was silence. Then her voice returned, firm and decisive. "Victoria, we need to secure your assets immediately." I felt my legs give way, so I sank onto the sofa edge. "Are you certain?" I whispered. "Yes. If you hesitate, he'll execute his next phase. We'll establish a trust under your name. It'll be legally bulletproof. He won't be able to access a penny." I swallowed hard. The townhouse, the savings, the book advances, the investments, everything I had earned was at risk. "I'm ready," I said. The following 96 hours were a whirlwind of paperwork, signatures, and conferences. Sophie operated like a force of nature. She assembled her team. We transferred the property deed into the trust, secured the investment portfolios, and moved every asset under my personal legal protection. By the time James returned home on the fourth day, I had done what I never thought I'd have to do: defend myself from the man I once trusted with everything. He entered carrying Chinese takeout, wearing his typical charming grin. "Thought we'd have dim sum tonight," he said cheerfully. I nodded and accepted the bag from his hands. He had no clue everything had shifted. The documents were executed, the money relocated, the fortress constructed. He could attempt whatever he wanted, but he would never reach my assets again. And I wasn't going to alert him. Let him believe I was still oblivious. Let him make his next move, because now I was prepared. 5 days later, James played his hand. It was a Thursday evening. He arrived home earlier than normal, dressed in one of his expensive suits. He appeared composed, almost arrogant, as he placed his laptop bag down and sat opposite me at the kitchen island. "We need to discuss something," he said, sliding a manila envelope toward me. I didn't react. I opened it slowly, revealing the contents inside. Divorce papers. "I believe it's for the best," he continued, his voice practiced. "We've drifted apart. I don't want things to become more complicated." I looked up at him, keeping my expression neutral. "Really?" I asked. He paused for a moment, just long enough for me to catch the flicker of doubt behind his eyes. Then he nodded. "Yes, it's better this way." I took a breath and slid the envelope back toward him. "Before we proceed, there's something you need to understand." His eyebrows furrowed. "What?" I leaned forward slightly. My voice was calm, clear, and intentional. "I've already secured everything." He blinked. "What?" The townhouse, the portfolios, the royalties, all of it. It's in a protected trust. You can't access it. The colour vanished from his face. What do you mean? I mean, I said, my tone unwavering, you don't get to walk in here, hand me divorce papers and disappear with half of my life. His jaw clenched. His fingers tightened around the envelope edge. You can't do that. I already have. He stared at me for a long moment, searching for some sign of vulnerability, but I didn't provide one. You were correct about one thing, I said quietly. Life is unpredictable. He pushed back from the island, slowly standing. We'll resolve this in court, he said, his voice icy and cutting. I smiled and stood as well. Then proceed. Try. He walked out of the room, and for the first time in weeks I breathed freely, because now he understood I wasn't the woman he could control anymore. I thought the worst was behind me. I was mistaken. 4 days after James stormed out, I noticed something odd at the publishing house. Hushed conversations, sideways looks. Colleagues who typically greeted me warmly suddenly avoided my gaze. It wasn't imagination. It was too systematic. Then my editor, Michelle, entered my office, her face ashen, clutching a printout. I think you should see this. It was a screenshot from an anonymous online platform, a post titled Author Conceals Assets During Divorce, Uses Advance Money. Below was a paragraph accusing an unnamed writer of embezzling funds to protect herself in a divorce, suggesting criminal behaviour. In the responses, someone had made it personal. I know exactly who this is. Victoria Sterling. Investigate her. I felt the blood leave my face. James. He was orchestrating this. I could sense it instinctively. He's attempting to destroy me, I whispered. Michelle nodded gravely. If this spreads, it could ruin your career, or worse. I stood up, pacing the office. I had invested years establishing my reputation, my credibility. I had earned every achievement through my own efforts, no shortcuts, no connections, and now one falsehood could demolish it all. I need to contact Sophie, I said, reaching for my phone. That evening, I sat across from Sophie in her conference room. She listened as I explained what was happening, my voice trembling with a mixture of terror and rage. This isn't just personal anymore, I said. He's trying to annihilate me professionally. Sophie leaned back, fingers interlaced. He's fighting dirty, she said, trying to pressure you into a settlement. He wants to intimidate you into surrendering. I met her gaze directly. I'm not retreating. She nodded, already composing a letter. First move, a cease and desist. If he escalates this further, we'll sue for defamation and reputational damage. A small flame of hope sparked inside me. He wanted to exhaust me with lies, but he had miscalculated one thing. I wasn't afraid of the truth, and I wasn't going anywhere. Just when I thought I had witnessed all of James's tactics, he sank even lower. 4 days later, Sophie summoned me to her office. Her tone was sharp, serious. He just filed a lawsuit, she said as I entered. He's accusing you of financial fraud. My heart plummeted. What? He claims you illegally transferred marital assets. He's alleging you embezzled funds from your shared accounts. I collapsed into the chair across from her. He can't be serious. He is, and there's more, Sophie said grimly. She slid a file across the desk. He's not acting alone. He filed with a co-plaintiff. I opened the folder. The name struck me like a physical blow. Marcus Dalton. It was the name from the text message, the one I had read on James's phone. Who is he? I asked. Sophie crossed her arms. A known con artist. He's been connected to multiple cases involving falsified documents. No convictions yet, but a long history of suspicion. I flipped through the papers. They were elaborate, filled with figures and fabricated transactions, some even imitating my signature. These aren't mine, I said, my voice escalating. These are complete fabrications. Sophie nodded. We know, but we have to prove it, and quickly. My hands balled into fists. All the fear I'd been carrying transformed into fury. He's trying to bury me in deceptions. Sophie's eyes hardened. Then let's ensure those deceptions crumble on top of him. She handed the file to a forensic accounting specialist. For the next week, we worked around the clock, collecting authentic transaction records, tracing digital evidence, verifying every action I had taken. I barely slept, but I persevered, because this wasn't just about money anymore. This was about my name, my integrity, and my right to defend what was mine. By week's end, we had everything we needed. The specialist traced the fraudulent documents to Marcus's operation. The dates were inconsistent. The signatures were flawed, and most crucially, there was no evidence linking those fake transactions to any of my actual accounts. James had thrown everything he had at me, but the truth was more powerful, and it was on my side. 6 weeks later, we entered the courthouse. Sophie was composed, razor sharp as always. I sat beside her, dressed in charcoal grey, my spine straight, my hands calm. Across the room, James looked like a ghost of the man I once knew. Agitated, nervous, unprepared. The judge examined the case methodically. Our documentation was flawless. Marcus never appeared. When the ruling was announced, I closed my eyes, not from relief but from closure. The court dismissed James's accusations. He was denied access to any portion of my trust. His defamation strategy backfired, and instead of gaining anything, he was ordered to pay my legal expenses. After the hearing, he attempted to approach me in the corridor. "You didn't need to do this," he said, voice subdued. I looked him directly in the eye. "No, James, you didn't need to do this." Then I walked away forever. In the weeks that followed, I rebuilt my life slowly, thoughtfully. I returned to writing. I took long strolls along the Charles River. I let tranquility replace the turmoil. I didn't celebrate. I reflected, because victory doesn't always feel like triumph. Sometimes it feels like peace after chaos. Sometimes it's simply the absence of fear. I discovered something through all of this, something every woman should understand. Trust is a privilege, but control over your life is a fundamental right. No matter how devoted someone appears, never surrender your power blindly. Know your value, safeguard your future, be prepared to act before it's too late. And if someone ever tries to destroy you with betrayal, stand firm. Stand tall and let the truth speak louder than vengeance. If you're still listening, thank you. And if this story touched you, share it. Like, comment. Let others know they're not alone. Because strength isn't just weathering the storm, it's learning how to command the sky afterward.